Well, you fast forward to 2023, and hip hop has had a love affair with Pablo Escobar. One of the biggest rappers in the world, Nas, was calling himself Nas Escobar, during the early part of his career. And you constantly see references to Pablo and Escobar in lyrics. 2 Chainz has a restaurant in Atlanta called Escobar's and so forth. When you look at someone that you view as a mass murderer, as a terrorist, he blows up planes, he kills 50,000 people, he kills presidential nominees and kids and women and so forth. When you see people putting him on a pedestal and emulating him, how do you feel?
It's a horrible feeling. They just don't know the story. And a lot of these people, we get a lot of hate mail on our social media sites. People want my children to die of cancer, a slow, painful death. They want to cut my throat off and crap down my neck. And I mean, it's just, we get some really nasty messages, but I don't address any of them. But what I'm thinking is probably the people writing that were not even alive when Pablo Escobar was spreading his violence and his horrible message around the world. They were probably not even born yet. So they really don't know the true message. I mean, you look back at Billy the Kid, he's a folk, hero and he's nothing more than an outlaw in all his cohorts that were out there. So I think a lot of it's just people are uneducated. A lot of people like to be contrarian to whatever the center of the road is. No, I'm not going to think like that. And, I'm even like that myself to a certain degree. I don't particularly like people telling me what to do, and I might push back a little bit, but it's just human nature, and it's crazy. We did a Northern European tour before COVID. We did 12 shows in 13 days, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And on the way back, we stopped in Reykjavik, Iceland, and did a show there. And the guy that owned the theater, the production guy, took us out to dinner that night. And the restaurant was Pablo's disco bar.
After Pablo Escobar.
Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot of people out there, but like I said, it's just the innocent people. And I wish we're trying to portray that why did all the innocent people, what did they have to do with all of this? Nothing. At the restaurant, at the shopping mall where all these bombs were being placed. That's why and you know what? I mean, I've heard in Medellin, the number 1 tourist attraction, guess, Pablo Escobar's gravesite. I mean, so that tells you there's all sorts of songs now about Pablo Escobar, like you said, hip hop shirts. We've had people come into our right? They're wearing Pablo Escobar shirts,
including cops.
Yeah, so it's just. It's out there. How you can't stop it. It's just, but the real story is, you know what? Pablo Escobar, his forte was killing innocent people.
Did Escobar ever kill any people himself, like, with his own hands?
Yes, he killed a friend of mine, and it was proven in Medellin. We had one of our captains. He wasn't assigned to us. I know him very well. He had his own security people at the house, and Pablo supposedly was there, and Pablo pulled the trigger when they killed a friend of mine, yes.
Okay, so he was getting his hands dirty. Well, he wasn't just assigning the murders to
but that was rare.
scenarios.
And what we would hear from everybody is other people would kill, but this time, because it was a police captain that he himself killed. And the other person that he killed was in prison. That started the whole, he's doing whatever he wants in his prison, a guy named Moncada. And that's been verified that Pablo himself killed. And he thought this guy Moncada was stealing from him.
Well, you guys wrote a book, Manhunters, How We Took Down Escobar. And you guys have a podcast now, Game of Crimes.
We do.
And you have a website, deanarcos.com.
Right.
And we do speaking engagements where we talk about the truth of Pablo Escobar, the actual truth, not the Netflix. And we said this is part of history, and it happened, and it needs to be history needs to be told.
Well, Javier Pena and Steve Murphy, thank you so much for your service. Living in the world I live in, where Escobar is sort of a folk hero and is, mentioned in songs and so forth, people really forget that this is a brutal serial killer. who bombed planes, who blew up buildings, who did car bombs on a daily basis, who killed little kids, who used kids to kill other people, then they themselves would get killed, who spread drugs which caused countless overdoses, caused kids to be born, with serious health problems, caused addictions that tore up families and entire communities. I personally have never tried cocaine. I had a close friend of mine overdose and die at 23, which made me say, okay, this stuff is a little too hard for me. I'm just not going to touch it. You know what I'm saying? I know part of your career was, busting weed people. Now weed is legal. Yeah. I personally don't think that's a very big deal. But when it comes to cocaine, I do think that's a serious problem. I do think that it needs to be taken off. And what you guys did with Escobar ultimately was a monumental thing in world history.
The weed problem is not as easy as everybody thinks it is. And I mean, this is a whole different topic. But the cartels are not going to give up making that easy money. People think because weed's legal in the United States, that got rid of the cartel problems. There's a retired wildlife officer in California that actually his interview came out this week, John Norris, who for years and years went after these guys in California, and they were using the forest, the national parks, to grow these extremely remote areas where they either went in by helicopter or they would take mules, or you would hike in for days to get there. And the violence is still out there. They're bringing in poison chemicals that are outlawed against the United States that once they touch the ground are toxic, and it takes an EPA cleanup crew to come and clean that up. They're killing the wildlife. But the biggest thing that really shocked me when we interviewed John was the diversion of the water resources in California, because we know over the past few years they had a drought. It takes from, I think, and if I'm quoting this right from John's book, from 2013 to 2018, it's estimated approximately 8 billion gallons of water were diverted to marijuana grows. 8 billion gallons that could have been used for people's farms, for crops, for people in the city to have water. I mean, the stats that he has are just unbelievable. It's not as, I think that our politicians that have legalized marijuana are very naive. So, and we don't really care about people smoking weed. No. I'll be honest with you.
And also the fentanyl problem. That's where I get concerned with all the fentanyl. Right. And people out there listening, be careful with those counterfeit pills. We've all heard thousands of examples where they think it's a pill, it's a innocent painkiller, and it's filled with fentanyl. They're selling it under the brand names. That stuff is dangerous. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. My friend Gangster Boo, she died a few months ago. She was in Memphis, partying with her brother, getting high, I think taking some cocaine and so forth. And now she's dead because there was fentanyl in the drugs that she was taking. And
I wish you could talk to some of the family members whose kids never take drugs. The kid said, "Hey, your arm hurts. You got pain here. Take this. I took it. It's a legitimate pill. That pill was bought on the black market. Tons of fentanyl contained. Yeah. Be careful."
I mean, when you look at the global drug problem as a whole now, as two guys that dealt with the biggest guy in the world who was doing this, do you think it's different now? With the fentanyl, because Colombia doesn't run it anymore. It's really Mexico now, right?
Yeah, Mexico, Colombia, China. I mean, there's still dope coming out of Colombia, China. But, my biggest takeaway from all this, we go after the biggest and the baddest. What happened to Pablo Escobar? We killed him. We went after the Cali cartel. What happened there? We took them down, right? There's another cartel born every minute somebody is taken out. Do you think Chapo, because he's in prison, that industry has stopped? Of course not. It's getting stronger and stronger. As long as there's money to be made, they're going to be sending it. I mean, I'm a big believer in education. Starting off younger with our kids, tell them the facts of what's out there, tell them, hey, make a right decision. I mean, how else are you going to stop this problem,
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I remember one of the guys I've interviewed, this guy named Turk, who was a rap artist from New Orleans, who was a drug addict himself, heroin, I think, at the time. And what he would say was that if you ever hear of an overdose in the neighborhood, the other drug addicts would actually be drawn to that particular drug because they're trying to get as close to death as possible. So if they hear of an overdose, they all want to take that drug because it'll get them higher than whatever else they were taking. And it creates this insane cycle of death, which is incomprehensible to someone who doesn't do drugs, but that's really what happens. And this fentanyl thing, like I said, like someone I personally knew who I was friends with is dead. And there is like a half dozen other rap artists that we've covered and so forth that are all dead from fentanyl. And it's crazy. I remember one of our regular guests, Boosie, he actually suggested that all the drug addicts go back to crack because it'll make you a lot funnier, more useful, and it'll actually keep you alive more so than the fentanyl.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's out there. And like I said, I wish, and we all know examples, family members. I mean, if you can just talk to those family members, it's an eye opener. We've talked to thousands, many of them, and it's just, they took the wrong pill. They never took anything. A friend says, take this. And that pill was bought on the black market.
Yep. Well, Steve Murphy and Javier Pena, thank you so much for for all the help that you've done in this world. And I wish you guys both the best.
Thank you, Vlad. We appreciate you having us on.
We appreciate it,
Take
buddy.
care.
All right. Thank
Peace.
you, guys.